In 1950, a house in America cost around $7,400. But it wasn't just a price tag, it bought you a real home. A full front yard, hardwood floors that creaked under your steps, and neighbors who knew your name. Fast forward to today, and that wouldn't even cover the down payment on a backyard shed. Gasoline? 29 cents a gallon in 1955. $5 filled your tank and still left enough for a Coke and a pack of gum. You didn't pump it yourself. Either a teenager in a uniform did it, cleaned your windshield, and tipped his cap with a sir. The 1955 Chevy Bel Air wasn't just a car. It was an icon. With its two-tone paint, gleaming chrome, and a V8 engine, it looked like it was speeding even when parked. Driving one meant more than getting around. It meant you were going places. In 1952, Mr. Potato Head made history as the first toy ever advertised on television. Back then, kids had to bring their own potato. The plastic version came later. Imagine giving a modern kid a raw potato and saying, "Here, go play." Back in 1950, the population of the United States hovered just over 150 million, less than half of what it is today. Small towns thrived, streets were quieter, and the grocery store felt like an extended family reunion. America felt spacious, but personal. People didn't lock their doors, not because crime was non-existent, but because trust ran deep. If someone knocked, you welcomed them. If they didn't knock, it was probably your cousin returning your letter. Sunday dinners weren't up for debate. The entire family came together, grandparents, cousins, that uncle who told the same joke every week. There was roast beef, mashed potatoes, and that strange Jell-O mold nobody liked, but everyone respectfully took a scoop of. Drive-in theaters were the heartbeat of weekend nights. You'd pull up, clip the speaker to your window, and watch double features under the stars. If you were lucky, the popcorn was fresh and maybe, just maybe, someone held your hand. In 1953, the TV dinner revolutionized weeknights. It came in a foil tray, cost just 98 cents, and offered a full meal with zero cleanup. Nobody called it junk food. Back then, it was high-tech convenience. A year later, color TVs hit the shelves, but at $1,000 apiece, they were a luxury. Most families stuck with black and white. When a neighbor finally got one, it was an event. People came over, sat on the carpet, and stared in awe. Until 1956, there were no interstate highways. Road trips were unpredictable. You packed paper maps, extra tires, and crossed your fingers. If the car broke down in the middle of nowhere, you hoped the sandwiches held out. In 1954, Elvis Presley released "That's All Right." His moves scandalized the old crowd. Too much hip, not enough him. But for teenagers, he was fire. He didn't just perform, he exploded into every living room, one record at a time. Early mornings began with the sound of glass bottles clinking on the porch. The milkman had come. If you were lucky, you got to peel off the paper lid before breakfast. That simple act meant the day had started. Every kid either had a red radio flyer wagon or dreamed of one. It carried everything: groceries, pets, little siblings. And when the rain came, it transformed into a pirate ship or a tank. Imagination was the only limit. The typical American household had one car, one TV, and one bathroom. Yet somehow it all worked. Siblings bickered over the TV dial remotes didn't exist. Taking turns wasn't a courtesy. It was survival. The average annual salary? Just over $3,200. And it was enough. Enough to buy a house, raise kids, and take a vacation even if it was just a week at grandma's. School lunches weren't snack packs and chocolate milk. You got meatloaf, peas, mashed potatoes, and a tiny carton of milk. And you ate it without fuss, because the lunch lady looked like she could lift a car. In the early 50s, families climbed onto their garages to adjust rooftop antennas. With a wrench and a prayer, they twisted until the snowy static turned to clear. When it clicked, you heard the theme song, I Love Lucy. No smartphones, no delivery apps. If Mom needed bread, she sent you. The grocery store was close, local, and everyone knew your name. $1 got you bread, milk, and coins for the candy jar. Televisions in 1950 were the size of dinner plates, but weighed as much as small fridges. No remotes, no pause buttons. If you wanted to change the channel, you stood up. And guess who Dad made do it? You. And in 1955, tucked away in Georgia, the first Waffle House opened its doors. Small, affordable, and open all night. A slice of comfort that never closed. Truckers, teens, and early risers all found a seat at the Waffle House counter. It didn't matter who you were. If you liked waffles and hot coffee, you belonged. In 1953, something straight out of science fiction happened. The first successful open-heart surgery using a heart-lung machine. Doctors stopped the heart, fixed it, and started it again. And it worked. Medicine was never the same. Going out of town? You left your house keys with the neighbors. Maybe the Johnsons next door, so they could feed the cat. No alarms, no surveillance. Just trust and maybe a pie waiting on the counter when you came back. Kids in the 50s played outside until the streetlights came on. No phones, no screens, just bikes, dirt, and stickball. You knew every kid within 3 blocks. And somehow, no one was ever bored. Coca-Cola came in thick glass bottles. A nickel in the vending machine. A cold bottle sliding out. Cap popped off on the opener, and that first burning sweet sip hit like magic. No zero sugar. No plastic. Just the real thing. Phones were mounted to the kitchen wall, with rotary dials that made a satisfying click. Mess up the last number? Start over. Long-distance calls were special, and party lines meant your neighbor might accidentally eavesdrop. Who needed a gym? Your workout was everyday life. Push mowing the lawn, chopping wood, hauling water, hanging clothes out to dry. That's how Grandpa got legs of steel. Flying? That was an event. Men in suits, women in gloves. You got real food, real space, and real service. Nobody wore pajamas or tried to board with a goat. A man's toolbox was his badge of honor, solid steel, full of grease, no fancy labels. You fixed what broke. And if your neighbor's mower gave out, you didn't call a repairman. You walked over and helped. Polio haunted families in the early 50s. Kids were told to avoid public pools during outbreaks. But in 1955, Jonas Salk's vaccine arrived, and the whole country exhaled in relief. If your family had a station wagon, you had everything. No seat belts, windows rolled down, dog drooling in the back, Mom passing sandwiches from a cooler while Dad yelled over the radio. It wasn't fancy, but it was freedom. The barbershop was the local news station. Clippers buzzed, stories were swapped, secrets half-whispered. No Yelp, just Lou, who'd cut your hair since Eisenhower got elected and still charged $2. No GPS. If you were lost, you stopped and asked. A stranger with a pencil and napkin drew your route. People actually helped and didn't send you the wrong way just for fun. When the ice cream truck rolled in, kids exploded into the street, barefoot with quarters in hand. Nobody cared about sugar intake, just that first bite of a bomb pop melting down your arm. Shop class in high school wasn't a throwaway. It was real. Welding, engine work, carpentry. You didn't just leave with a diploma. You left knowing how to fix a roof or build a table. In 1951, the first nuclear power lit up 4 bulbs in Idaho. Just 4. But it was the start of something massive. The atomic age had begun exciting and terrifying all at once. In the kitchen, appliances gleamed like chrome dreams. Toasters, waffle irons, blenders, everything looked like it belonged on a rocket ship. And when they broke, Dad didn't call tech support. He grabbed a screwdriver. Kids didn't wear helmets. They rode bikes with streamers, crashed, limped home, and got iodine slapped on like holy water. And somehow, we all made it. TV didn't run all night. Around midnight, it played the national anthem, cut to black, and that was that. No infomercials. No reruns. Just static and Dad yelling to turn it off. In the 50s, car keys weren't a must. Some trucks didn't even have locks. You left the keys under the visor. No one touched it. These days, your microwave needs a password. Back then, trust was better than tech. Feeling sick? You didn't search the symptoms, you called the family doctor. He came to the house with his black bag, a thermometer, and a calm voice that somehow made you feel better already. Penny candy actually cost a penny. Big jars behind the counter. You picked Tootsie Rolls, Mary Jane's, bubble gum. 5 cents made you feel like royalty. The thermostat? Set it once and forget it. In winter, you wore a sweater. In summer, you opened a window. If you complained, Dad would say, "It builds character." And somehow, it did. Sunday morning meant gospel and headlines on the radio. Bacon in the pan, Mom pouring coffee, Dad flipping the paper. No screens, no scrolling, just slow, sacred peace. Food wasn't flown in from overseas. Milk, butter, meat, they came from down the road. No one asked if it was organic. It was. That's just how food worked. Cigarette ads were on TV, in magazines, even in doctors' offices. Some brands claimed to help digestion. Everyone smoked, even your boss at his desk. Teachers were respected or feared. You stood when spoken to. You said, "Yes, ma'am." You didn't talk back unless you wanted a note sent home, and that was a fate worse than detention. Things didn't get tossed, they got repaired. Radios got new tubes, shoes new saws, toasters new wires. Not because you were cheap, because you were capable. And when something finally died, you mourned it a little. And every morning, like clockwork, a man in a hat with a briefcase kissed his wife, caught the 8:15, and went to work downtown. A quiet rhythm. A steady life. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Every evening, he came home on time tired, but proud. The Jell-O salad was the star of every dinner table. Lime green, packed with cottage cheese and mystery fruit, floating like they defied gravity. Maybe a few shredded carrots tossed in for flair. Nobody really liked it, but everyone ate it anyway, because that's what polite people did. It was tradition, and tradition mattered. When someone in the neighborhood had a baby, the entire block showed up with casseroles, hand-me-down cribs, and advice nobody asked for. No registries, no online wish lists, just people showing up for each other. The new father handed out cigars. The new mother stayed home for a week, surrounded by love and leftovers. Roller skates had metal wheels that clanged like thunder on the sidewalk. You tightened them with a little key that hung from a string around your neck. If the toe clip broke mid-ride, you walked home barefoot, socks spotted with blood, smiling the whole way. Every diner had a jukebox, either at the table or by the door. You dropped in a dime, turned the dial, and watched the gears spin to life. Chuck Berry, Patsy Cline, Buddy Holly, they filled the room through crackling speakers. The chatter stopped, the heads nodded, and for 3 minutes, the world felt perfect. Paperboys were little entrepreneurs in the 1950s. Up before dawn, heavy canvas bags slung over one shoulder, hurling papers with sniper precision. Rain, snow, or blistering sun, no excuses. If you wanted pocket money back then, you didn't stream videos or sell candy bars. You delivered. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first satellite ever to orbit Earth. It was no bigger than a beach ball, but it terrified America. The space race began overnight, and suddenly, every kid started hearing about science and rockets in school. A movie ticket in 1950 cost just 48 cents. For less than $1, you got a seat, a cartoon short, a bag of popcorn, and pure magic. You didn't buy online or scroll through trailers. You showed up, picked whatever was playing, and it was almost always good. In 1953, scientists James Watson and Francis Crick discovered the double helix structure of DNA. Most people didn't know what that meant, but it would go on to change everything: medicine, genetics, even criminal justice. Back then, it was just a strange drawing in a science magazine. You could buy a brand new Ford F-150 pickup in the early 50s for under $1,500. No touchscreens, no Bluetooth, just raw steel, an AM radio, and a bench seat wide enough for 3 grown men and a dog. If it broke, you fixed it yourself, with a wrench and a little grit. The Korean War started in 1950 and dragged on until 1953. More than 1.7 million Americans served. It wasn't talked about much after, but it left scars on soldiers, on families, on history. For those who came home, it was a brutal, frozen memory they carried quietly. Air conditioning? Rare. You cooled off with a fan, a tall glass of lemonade, or a nap on the porch swing. On the hottest nights, the basement became the family's summer bedroom. Nobody complained. It was just summer being summer. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a movie star. She was the movie star. In 1955, she started her own production company, something almost unheard of for a woman then. To some, she was just a blonde bombshell. But behind the flashbulbs, she was sharp, driven, and nobody's fool. Bathrooms came in colors: pink, mint green, sky blue. The toilet, the tub, even the tiles matched. With 1 bathroom and 3 kids, bath night was military precision. Oldest first, youngest last, same water, no arguments. In 1958, the microchip was invented. No one outside a lab cared much at the time, but it quietly laid the foundation for computers, smartphones, and everything in your pocket today. Back then, people were still more impressed by automatic garage doors. American Bandstand went national in 1957, hosted by a clean-cut young man named Dick Clark. Teenagers danced in saddle shoes and poodle skirts while parents frowned from the kitchen doorway. It wasn't just a TV show. It was a cultural earthquake that defined what cool looked like. Summer meant community pools chlorine, so strong it burned your eyes, lifeguards who yelled like drill sergeants, and kids cannonballing straight into the deep end anyway. Everyone went home with bleached hair and sunburned noses. In 1958, the hula hoop hit stores and sold 25 million units in just 4 months. Driveways, parks, schoolyards, kids spun themselves dizzy, while parents secretly tried it in the living room after dark and pulled muscles they didn't know they had. Homemade ice cream was a ritual. Rock salt, heavy metal crank, sore arms, and the reward cold, creamy perfection. Store-bought never stood a chance. Rock and roll didn't creep in, it exploded. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Elvis Presley, they didn't sound like anything else. Parents panicked, preachers warned, and teenagers just turned up the volume. For the first time, music wasn't just entertainment, it was rebellion. Furniture shopping meant visiting a local department store. You sat on couches, flipped through swatches, drank coffee, and probably knew the salesman by name. If something broke, he came over and fixed it himself. McDonald's was brand new. The menu? 9 items. 15-cent burgers, 10-cent fries. You walked up to a window, paid in coins, and ate your meal off the hood of your car. And it was perfect. Salesmen made house calls selling vacuums, encyclopedias, and brushes. They wore suits, smiled big, and gave live demos in your living room. Sometimes Mom bought something. Sometimes she didn't. Either way, she offered them coffee, because that's just what you did. In 1959, Hawaii became America's 50th state. It felt like another world: volcanoes, palm trees, beaches, hula skirts. Postcards started showing up everywhere, and suddenly everyone dreamed of paradise. Typewriters clattered in offices, schools, and home studies. Mistakes meant whiteout or starting over, and that sharp ding as you hit return was one of the most satisfying sounds on earth. Halloween meant handmade costumes, old bed sheets for ghosts, cardboard boxes for robots, burnt cork for a cowboy beard. No parents trailing behind. Just kids, pillowcases, candy, and adventure under the streetlights. Televisions weren't decor, they were furniture. Big wooden cabinets with built-in legs and cloth speaker fronts. When they broke, Dad called the TV repairman, who showed up with a toolbox and a cigarette dangling from his lip. Men wore hats because that's just what men did. Fedoras, flat caps, pork pies, it didn't matter. You wore one out, tipped it when greeting someone, and took it off indoors. No debate, just manners. Women curled their hair with metal rollers and sat under giant helmet dryers that looked straight out of a sci-fi movie. The salon smelled like hairspray, perm solution, and gossip. It wasn't just beauty, it was belonging. In 1957, a little-known writer named Dr. Seuss published The Cat in the Hat, only 236 unique words, and it changed children's books forever. Reading suddenly became fun, chaotic, and full of color. Postcards mattered. Even a short trip meant sending one. They cost pennies and said simple things like, "Thinking of you." People saved them in shoeboxes, little paper memories of places they loved. Bank hours were strict. Miss 3 p.m. on Friday, and you were broke until Monday. No ATMs, no apps. Just a teller, a ledger, and that heavy thunk of the stamp marking your deposit for history. And in 1955, Disneyland opened its gates in California. Walt Disney himself walked the park that first day through melted asphalt, broken rides, and plumbing delays. There were only 18 attractions, but somehow it already felt like magic. And yet, through all the chaos and cracks, it really did become the happiest place on earth. School desks still had inkwells leftovers from a different time. Most kids were already using ballpoint pens, but those little holes stayed like tiny fossils of the past. During math class, you'd poke your pencil through and wonder how anyone ever wrote with an actual feather and ink. Sunday meant church, not just for religion, but for rhythm. Families dressed up, kids fidgeted and whispered. And after the sermon, you shook hands, went home, and sat down to roast chicken and mashed potatoes. It wasn't just belief. It was the glue that held the week together. If you wanted to learn something, you reached for the encyclopedias. A salesman had knocked on the door, offered a full set of Britannica, and your parents signed up for monthly payments. That heavy row of books? It was the internet. Lunchboxes were solid steel, tough enough to survive any schoolyard. Roy Rogers, Hopalong Cassidy, or Howdy Doody on the side. Inside, a bologna sandwich, an apple, and a thermos full of milk. Nobody traded unless you had Oreos. In 1950, Diners Club launched the first real credit card. It started as a way for businessmen to pay for steak dinners. By the end of the decade, more people were signing up and forgetting to read the fine print. 1951 brought America's first coast-to-coast live TV broadcast. President Truman spoke from the White House, and people across the country watched him at the exact same time. One screen, one country, one shared moment. Yard games ruled the neighborhood. Jacks, jump rope, lawn darts, the dangerous kind made of steel. No instructions, no batteries. Just imagination, scraped knees, and staying out until the porch light came on. Pantries were stocked with canned everything: Spam, condensed soup, fruit cocktail with that one red cherry floating on top. It wasn't gourmet, but it fed 5 people on a single paycheck. And half the dinners were casseroles. Bar soap came in cardboard boxes and strong scents. Irish Spring, Lifebuoy, Dial. Every bathroom had a soggy washcloth and a drawer full of soap slivers that somehow fused into one multicolored blob. Thanks to Kodak's Brownie camera, capturing memories was no longer a luxury. Grainy black and white photos of birthdays, beaches, and backyard barbecues became family treasures. And if your finger wasn't in the frame, it was a miracle. Ashtrays were everywhere, even if not everyone smoked. Some were glass, some ceramic, some built into the arms of chairs. People lit up at the dinner table, in cars, even at the doctor's office. It was just part of the air. TV shows always ended with a moral. Whether it was Lassie, The Lone Ranger, or Father Knows Best, there was always a clear message. Be kind. Tell the truth. Don't climb down wells. Simple stuff, but it stuck. Layaway meant waiting. You didn't take it home until it was fully paid off. No credit, no interest, just little payments and big patience. And when you finally brought it home, it meant something. In 1951, direct dial long-distance calls became a thing. No operator, no hold time. Suddenly, calling across the country didn't feel so far. Car interiors weren't plush, they were metal. You left your Chevy in the sun, and the steering wheel could cook your hand. Vinyl seats stuck to your legs. No cup holders, no airbags, just guts, heat, and horsepower. In 1952, the barcode was born. A first patent looked like a bullseye. Nobody had scanners yet, but the idea of machines reading products felt like science fiction. Still, it started with a doodle and changed everything. Most homes had one phone line, one phone, and absolutely no privacy. If it rang, the race was on. And if your sister hogged the line, tough luck. No voicemail. You just hoped they'd call back. Sidewalk chalk came from white rocks you found in the yard. Driveways became racetracks, hopscotch boards, and masterpieces, washed away by the first summer storm. No instructions. Just draw. Every town had its soda fountain or lunch counter. Red stools spun in circles. You ordered grilled cheese or a cherry Coke, and the waitress knew your name because she'd known it since you were 5. Thanks for joining this journey through time. If this made you smile, remember something, or wish you could visit the past drop-alike, hit subscribe and share it with someone who remembers too.